In today's video, we're going to be looking at a spreadsheet I put together for robotaxis and their cost breakdown and also what they could generate in profits. Going to be trying to stretch this out into sort of a base case and then a sort of bull case. It almost looks like a super bull case. What theoretically could be possible for robotaxis and full self-driving. So I'm going to be playing with some of these numbers and discussing it here. If you love that detail, you're going to love this video. So let's jump into it. And remember, I'm not a personal financial advisor. I'm just a guy. I love long-term, high-growth investing and thinking about the future. So if you love all that, I encourage you to subscribe to my channel, as you're probably going to enjoy my content. Okay, so I put this together for another video where I was talking about why you should reserve your Cybertruck robotaxi now. And because the full self-driving price is locked in at $10,000. If Tesla achieves full self-driving, that price could escalate 20, 30, 40, 50, even 60, 70, even $100,000 just for that cost of the full self-driving upfront cost, I think is possible. And so that's an important point if you want to potentially own a Cybertruck robotaxi. Locking that in with $100 refundable reservation is, in my opinion, very much worth it. But anyways, in this video, we're going to, again, playing with some of these numbers. So I'm going to run through those numbers. This sort of my base case of a Cybertruck that you're reserving today. Now, for example, I'm assuming that a Cybertruck could drive 300 miles per day of total driving time, kind of puts on the odometer. And was sort of assuming or thinking like 30 miles an hour average or so for about 10 hours a day of driving around during rush hour in the morning, and then mid-afternoon or lunchtime, and then also rush hour evening. Potentially could do higher than that. We're going to raise this number up in the bull case, but that gives you about 109,000 miles a year. And I'm assuming 50% of these miles are going to be billable miles. Maybe this is too high. It's hard to argue this utilization rate, how much of the actual driving is miles where the customer is paying you to drive. But I think 50% is a good estimate. Bull case, we raise this a little bit because I think as there's more robotaxis, this could be more efficient. Of course, if there's too many robotaxis, then actually your miles per day could eventually drop, but your utilization rate could become more efficient. That would be the sort of long-term scenario. But that won't happen for a very long time because there's much more vehicles in the world than there are robotaxis. Okay, so that gives you 150 billable miles a day and 54,000 billable miles a year. And I'm going to say that you can charge $1.25 US sort of in the early years. I think this price will decline over time as there's more. It's just the economics of robotaxis as they scale will become less. I think Tesla maybe will take a lower percentage as this price declines, so it can balance out to the Cybertruck or the robotaxi owner. Okay, so you get $187 a day in revenue, $68,000 a year. These are US dollars, I'm assuming. I know, and where I live in Canada right now, it's roughly double this for a taxi. So that's why I put this price in, as I think this is a reasonable price that people would pay. And then again, I think it would decline to become on par with what it currently costs to own a vehicle, or even go less than that eventually. But anyways, 15% of that revenue I think Tesla might take up front. I think Tesla will charge an upfront cost for when you buy your robotaxi, full self-driving, and then they will also take a percentage of the revenue per mile or per kilometer or whatever it is that is billed. So they're taking about $10,000 a year for a Tesla. In this video, we're kind of looking from the owner's perspective, but even more so from a Tesla perspective, how well can full self-driving serve Tesla, and as Tesla shareholders, how well can full self-driving serve us as shareholders and owners of the company. And I think the implications are tremendous. Okay, so $10,000 a year roughly, and the robotaxi, I'm saying that Cybertruck single motor base model, $40,000. I'm suggesting it could last 500,000 miles. I mean, I think it could last longer than that. We're going to upgrade this in the bulk case. I think you could even replace battery packs after a while and just continue to run it because it has that stainless steel body. Even replace seats as they wear out would be worthwhile as the owner of the robotaxi. Because I think robotaxi cost is going to rise over time. But anyways, 4.6 years then is kind of your lifespan for your vehicle. And per year, as you I'm assuming you take a loan to finance the vehicle, and then as the owner, as the Cybertruck owner, they would pay off that loan over time. It's kind of how I've done this model. So that'd be like you're basically every of your 4.5 years, $8,700 a year goes towards paying off your truck entirely. You're paying off your loan. So at the end of it, you took out a loan, and at the end you have zero loan. Same with the full self-driving. I'm saying it's $10,000 right now. That's why it's good to reserve these vehicles right now if you want to consider being a robotaxi owner. Just $2,200 a year. And your insurance, I'm assuming it's going to be $4,000 a year. Very difficult to break this down, but $4,000 a year is what I chose for insurance. Could be higher, lower, depends how. Maybe robotaxis are extremely perfectly safe, and this is almost zero. Not sure, but I put in $4,000 as a kind of a commercial taxi insurance rate. Tires, $3,000 for your tires, I'm assuming, and since you're driving so many miles a year and they're going to last 60,000 miles, you're going to pay about $5,400 a year just for your tires as you're replacing them. And your electricity cost, 256 watt hours per kilometer, is kind of a rough number for the Cybertruck in a cooler weather city environment. Your overall electricity is about $6,700 a year. Cleaning, I'm estimating $20 a year, $7,300, or $20 a day, $7,300 per year. Maybe that's not every day it's clean, but every 2 or 3 days, $40, $60 kind of cleaning cost to wash the inside, vacuum out, or wash the outside, vacuum out the inside, etc. And the loan amount again is $50,000, $40,000 for the truck, and $10,000 for full self-driving. I'm saying 4% interest. You're paying roughly $2,000. Of course, this will actually decrease over the life of the vehicle as you pay off the loan. But we're kind of keeping this fairly simple and understandable evaluation here. And other maintenance, I'm suggesting about $4,000 a year for brakes, replacing seats. Maybe this could be higher, but $4,000 a year is what I'm estimating or putting in there. And there's a lot of cushion in these models, so even if this was $10,000, you're still going to be really fine as the owner, of the vehicle. Okay, and now kind of totaling all this up, you get your total revenues here, $68,000 a year, and your total cost of about $50,000 a year. And then, of course, this total cost includes paying off your loan for the vehicle. So at the end of that 4.6 years, you've paid off your vehicle and loan in full. And so the difference you're going to make profit over that time is about $17,000 a year, or about $80,000 over the life of that vehicle. And which overall, if you use your own money up front, $50,000 to buy the vehicle in full self-driving, it gets about 23% return on your money over that time. So a very good return as a robotaxi owner. Of course, it's Tesla. They're making about $10,000 per year, and they're also $10,000 per year over 4.6 years, so that's about $46,000 there, and then they're going to take $10,000 up front in the base case. And I think the bull case we're going to look at gets a little bit extreme and play with some of these numbers, but I think it's somewhere between this base case, bull case is probably actually a plausible outcome for Tesla. This is why I own most of my portfolio, 90% or so of my portfolio is in Tesla. Sometimes I think it should be 100% in Tesla. I'm still the other 10% since other companies I like as well, and I'm always exploring other potential companies. But it all hinges around, can Tesla really achieve a robotaxi level of full self-driving? I don't care about the 5 levels, SAE, 5 levels of autonomous driving. I care about, can they make a regulator-approved full self-driving level of robotaxi that could be commercialized, because that's what matters the most as shareholders. I personally think that's going to start with certain restricted areas, like within a certain city grounds, like all these actually clearly marked, like on a map. All these streets are full, the city trusts, the city of Phoenix, for example, they're going to say, yeah, The data is clear. Full self-driving, it's been clearly shown to work well in Phoenix, and we have all this data showing that it's completely reliable with 0 interventions. We're going to prove it for all these city streets, and then it's going to be approved on highways, and then other cities, and then eventually just pretty much 99.9% of all roadways, I think, are all going to be approved kind of by drivable surface. It's how I see it rolling out. Anyways, on to the bull case where things get very, very interesting. Okay, so I kind of highlighted where I made changes here. So I upped this to miles per day, 350 miles a day. So I think you're doing more, and I'm thinking there's going to be more and more robotaxis available and being used. So I'm actually, your percentage of miles that are billable is going up. So I made that 55% instead of 50%. And now this is really more the bull case for Tesla as Tesla shareholders. So I'm going to think, yeah, Tesla is going to actually take something like 20% of your the revenue. So that's about $17,500 per year they're going to make in revenue. Still have this at $1.25. This could maybe start to decline. Maybe we'll play with that here and see how the numbers shake up. But $1.25 is what I have that at. And I'm going to, this is a big change here. I changed it to a 1,000,000-mile battery, or 1,000,000 miles for the truck. That after 1,000,000 miles, the truck is basically a scrap or, ready for salvage. There's obviously still going to be value. Maybe still could even be salvaged at that point, and seats continue to be replaced, components replaced, battery packs replaced. But I'm putting in 1,000,000 instead of 500,000 we had. I've changed the full self-driving cost from $10,000 to $50,000. So people are going to pay $50,000 up front just to have full self-driving installed into their vehicle. Everything else is about the same. Of course, your loan is changed now to $90,000 if you're loaning it, so you're paying more interest on the loan. But yeah, that all adds up. Alrighty. So, and of course, instead of 4.6 years, we have 7.8 years. The truck's going to last a lot longer. It's doing more miles per year, but it's also going to last more years. So it's going to last almost 8 years, kind of, before it gets to that 1,000,000 miles of miles that it's done in total. Okay, so you add up all your totals again here, and your difference gets quite stark. Of course, you're paying more up front as the owner, but you're making more, $25,000 a year, and over a longer span of time that's used, which gets you about $200,000 per year of income, which is about a 16% compound annual growth rate when you consider what the upfront cost is of $90,000. Say you're using your own dollars instead of, it wasn't even a loan that you took out, but you just used $90,000 of your own dollars. This is rough. Of course, there wouldn't be any interest then if you were using your own. There would be no loan and no interest to pay, but still has that payback period. So it would be approximately this 16%. Okay, but now I want to talk about the implications, though, as a Tesla shareholder. And again, why owning Tesla? I think the risk is not owning at least some Tesla, because the implications are just staggering. Okay, let's say by 2030, I've heard Elon say they hope they get to 20 million vehicle unit sales by 2030. So we're saying 20 million, we're going to plug in there, and robotaxi sales are going to be 10 million of that. It's hard to say. This could be higher. It could be all 20 million, because again, I think robotaxis, if they're achieved, are going to be, the demand for them is going to be much higher than the supply for a long time, unless Tesla was a partner with other automakers and really made their software, their hardware, licensed out to other automakers. So there potentially, maybe there's some rumors they might be doing that with Toyota. Who knows? But either way, demand is still going to be higher than supply, I think, for a long time. I'm going to assume 10 million sales of robotaxis. Maybe 10 million are going to other markets and are non-robotaxi markets. Regulators aren't approved at that point. It's hard to say. But 10 million robotaxi sales. I'm trying to keep this, a Super Bowl case, but reasonable full case, because the numbers get just wonky here. So your full self-driving upfront sales per vehicle is $50,000. People are paying $50,000 per vehicle just to plug that in. So you multiply 50,000 times 10 million, you get some staggering results. You get a million, billion, 500 billion in full self-driving upfront sales. full self $500 billion. Okay, now if I assume because their Tesla's taking 20% of every mile that's driven on average, and there's $17,000 per year, and that's going to last for 7.8 years roughly. So Tesla's sort of making that over the life of the vehicle. If we just kind of calculate the life of the vehicle, and we plug that in, it's going to be about $1.375 trillion over, or 137,500 over the life of the vehicle per vehicle. So it's kind of like Tesla's taking $50,000 up front and then another 137,000 over the next 8 years or so per vehicle. So total they get, that's about 1.375 trillion sort of for the vehicles produced. So the 10 million robotaxis produce is 10 million times by this, right? You get 1.375 trillion. So the total value is sort of this 500 billion plus this. You get about $1.875 trillion for robotaxis. And you put in a PE of, I'm saying 50, because again, even at, there's something like close to, there's like 1.5 billion vehicles or more in the world. And if you assume that most of those could eventually be robotaxis, or even like half of them eventually robotaxis, you have a long way to go when you're only making 10 million a year. That's why demand is going to far exceed supply for a very, very long time. So the market cap of this, from full self-driving alone, this doesn't include like what they might make on selling the vehicle itself. They could just sell the vehicles at cost or even a loss. The robotaxi, vehicles. This is just from the full self-driving. If you give that a ratio of, like, you assume this is all sort of net income, and you give it a ratio of 50, a very generous ratio, because again, there's still lots of growth ahead of it. It's going to be, we have the market cap is like, this is where it just gets wonky. It's like almost hard for me to believe what's wrong here with the model, but in some ways it also makes sense. I think somewhere between this base case, which would be very generous in itself, to this bull case, I think it could be reality if they solve full self-driving. But it's a $93 trillion company, in the next, 9 years from now. $93 trillion. My more conservative estimates that I throw around are like, $8-9 trillion company, and people I know laugh at that. I think that's pretty conservative. So this is like the mega bull case, 93 trillion. Okay. And the current market cap is $649 billion at $677 per share. So you're talking like, you do the kind of the rough math, if there's no share dilution, no share buybacks, you're talking like $97,000 per share, close to $100,000 per share for Tesla by 2030. It sounds ridiculous, and it might be ridiculous, but I think it's actually plausible. The one thing I might change here, and I wanted to play with to adjust this, would be this number. So let's say this goes down to like 75, let's say $1, just to see how that affects it. So $1 per mile on average, your average rate will still get you about 9% owner as your owner of the vehicle. So lots of people would still likely want to buy and own robotaxi fleets. So there'll still be incentive for owners to do that. And your approximate share price is going to be like 83,000. It's going to be like an $80 trillion company in that scenario. Now, what if we drop it even lower, like to 75 cents? Then that's not feasible. So unless you lowered this cost, so maybe we lower this percent rate. So this goes down, and then let's see, maybe it's like 5%. And then people are going to make, Tesla makes 5% on everyone, and there's 75 cents per billable mile. This is more realistic than that super mega bull case I was just suggesting. But owners still could make somewhere around 5% a year compounded, but the share price might be $36,000 a share. So $36,000 from where we're at, $677. It's still like an insane increase. So I think, somewhere between these kind of ranges is going to be reality if Tesla can achieve full self-driving. I think they have all the keys to solve full self-driving. They have the right approach, a very generalized approach. They have the huge data advantage, which I've learned is very, very important when you're talking about this sort of software 2.0, which is your artificial neural nets, which is how they're training their neural net for learning to drive the car. Basically the brain that controls and functions and identifies objects, and then can from there make decisions about said objects through Tesla as it drives. They have the data advantage for that, and the data advantage is growing, and there's no one else who's sort of vertically integrated in any other vehicle makers, any other full self-driving startups to have this kind of insane data advantage that Tesla has. And they have the world's leading minds. They got Andrej Karpathy working on this, and his team worked on this. I would say he's probably, when you're talking artificial neural networks, he's the guy, probably one of the leading faces in the world on that subject. So they have the right people, they have the right data advantage, they have the right fleet of, they have the right approach and a generalized approach rather than a LiDAR approach that I think, which relies on creating these high definition maps and then sort of maintaining these maps. I think is a very brittle, non-scalable solution. I think they have the scalable solution. What I'm trying to say is I really think Tesla could do it. I really think they could achieve full self-driving. And reality is it's going to be somewhere between like that $100,000 per share to something lower, maybe like maybe closer to my kind of estimate that I've been throwing around, which is like an $8-9 trillion company, and means it could like 12-13x from today's current valuation. Is like $650 billion company. But but I think it's the potential of something much higher, like $30,000 per share, is actually pretty plausible. So that's a point I really want to hammer home in this video. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'm going to put a link to the to this spreadsheet in the notes here of this video. If you got value out of this video, I really encourage you to hit that subscribe button. I'll be making more videos like this in the future, and literally looking for high growth, long-term investments that can just be sort of your all-in investments. Again, none of this is personal financial advice. Please make your own considerations, your own due diligence. But thank you so much for watching. All right, I'll see you in my next video, and remember, it's in the bag. Cheers.